109 years ago this week, Juneau became our capital, more our seat of government, technically. Well, do you know where it was before that and why it moved? Well, author Laurel Downing-Bills certainly does. She joins us back on the couch for this week's Story Time with Aunt Phil. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this week in history, what happened? Take us back.
September the 8th, 1906, Juneau became the seat of government. Before that, it was Sitka when Alaska was transferred to the United States from Russian America, and that was in 1867. And before that, the capital, the seat of government, was actually in Kodiak.
Really? Okay, that I did not know. So why make the move to Juneau, especially for the fact that the only way to get there, the only way it was accessible was by boat then, by ship?
Well, the gold discovery of Juneau Douglas, what would become Juneau Douglas, happened, and then that made the population grow, and so Juneau gained more importance and had better accommodations and more influence at the time. However, there was a problem because that also created legal issues like contracts that had to be signed or payments made and some other legal things. So that meant that lawyers from Juneau had to go to Sitka where the judge was. Well, there were only 2 ships a month that traveled between Juneau and Sitka. So the lawyers had to hope that they got their business taken care of quickly in Sitka, or they'd have to wait an extra 2 weeks in Sitka before they could come back home.
I can see why that would be a little bit of, I guess, a pain for lack of a better term. So was it that who put the pressure on? Who really put the pressure on? Was it those lawyers to make that move then?
Yes, it was the Juneau lawyers. They pressured Congress to move the seat of government from Sitka to Juneau, and their pleas were heard. In 1900, President McKinley signed the Alaska Act, which was also known as the Civil Code of 1900, which officially then made the seat of government in Juneau, not in Sitka. And just interestingly to note that that bill was 600 pages, and it was the longest bill that Congress had ever passed up to that point in time.
Wow, was this a big deal in Juneau at the time?
No, not really, no, because it only meant that the governor would move as well as the surveyor general. And it didn't move right away because then Governor John Brady, he had his home and his businesses and his gardens in Sitka, and he did not want to move.
This guy. Well, how long did it take to get him to play along then?
He never did play along.
Never.
6 years later, it actually happened, but only because the Department of the Interior terminated Brady's tenure, and they appointed Wilford Hogat to be the new governor. Now, he had businesses in the mining industry in Juneau, so he was ready and set, and he immediately set up the offices there then in Juneau. And then in September 1906, the Surveyor General finally boarded a ship with 40 tons of paperwork, and then the transfer was official at that time.
Wow, so 1912, it's technically then the capital?
Yes, Alaska's capital became Juneau in 1912 when Alaska became a territory of the United States, and that's when they started building the governor's mansion. But of course, the issue of the capital and where it was located lasted for years because of the inaccessibility, with only airplanes or ships to get into in the bad weather. But of course, today, when you have cell phones, emails, and live chats, that issue is not quite as important as it used to be.
Right now, it's more a case of some want to know why it's not in Anchorage, but that's a different story.
That's in Volume 5.
For a different time it is, see?